Tony Parker will now enter the game to an ovation.
When us fans hear a star player's name, we usually picture them wearing the jersey of the team that they made a name for themselves for. But some former star players take a detour in their careers, and they end up playing for teams that we either wish they didn't play for, or ever wonder how they got there to begin with. So in this video, I'm going to be going over 12 NBA players that you forgot played for these teams. Cue the intro. Let's start this list off with the Miami Heat legend, Dwyane Wade. D-Wade spent his first 13 seasons with the Miami Heat, and at the time he was there, it honestly felt like we would never see him suit up for another franchise. However, D-Wade signed with the Chicago Bulls, his hometown team, in free agency in 2016. And even though this was a weird sight at first, it was his hometown team, so it was understandable why he went there, and he was still putting up good numbers in Chicago at the age of 35. But where things got weird though was the very next season, where Dwyane Wade signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James in their new jerseys. And let me tell you, this took a while to get used to. Matter of fact, it took so long to get used to that later that season, he got traded back to the Miami Heat. And it was like he never played for the Cavs. But I'm sure we can all agree that D-Wade only looked right in a Miami Heat jersey. Now, let's hop right into another player who was his teammate that year in Cleveland, Derrick Rose. D Rose, who iconically is also from Chicago, played 8 seasons in the Windy City and picked up an MVP at just 22 years old. As we all know, he picked up many career-altering injuries, and in 2016, he ended up being traded to the New York Knicks, which is a weird sight, especially at first. But the weirder sight came the following season in 2017, when he signed a 1-year contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And with those new Cavs jerseys, this was a very weird look for the former MVP. And just to make matters even worse, he only played 16 games with them until he got traded to Utah, which I think we could all be grateful that he never suited up for them. And sorry, Jazz fans. But D Rose in Cleveland was definitely a weird sight that no NBA fans expected to see. Moving on to our next player, sticking at the guard position, we got Allen Iverson. Another former MVP. AI, who was the number 1 pick for the 76ers in 1996, spent his first 10.5 seasons with the franchise, and I'm sure I don't need to mention how great he was in Philly. But he did get traded in the beginning of the 2006 and 7 season to the Denver Nuggets, which was a weird sight at first, but he did fit well with the team and his new co-star, Carmelo Anthony. He later got traded to Detroit in 2008, which was also a weird sight at first, but Allen Iverson on the Grizzlies in 2009 tops all those 3 teams. He only played 3 games for the Memphis Grizzlies, and fun fact, he's the only Hall of Fame player to play for the Memphis Grizzlies at the moment. But thankfully, he did get traded back to Philly after those 3 games and called it a career after the 2010 season. Our next player, we got Jason Richardson. Most of us remember Jay Rich for his time he spent with the Golden State Warriors, the sons of Steve Nash, and when he won back-to-back slam dunk contests. But do you guys remember when he played for the Philadelphia 76ers? Probably not. And to be fair, it was at the very end of his career. He was also on the 76ers at the very beginning of their trust the process phase, and was also dealing with knee injuries at the time. He retired from the NBA with the Sixers at the age of 34 in 2015, and which is probably a big reason why we barely remember him in a Sixer uniform, as they were consistently the worst team in the league. Joakim Noah. Remember when Joakim Noah was in MVP talks in the 2014 season? He did win Defensive Player of the Year that year for the Bulls though. But it's crazy to think that Noah was once in the MVP conversation. After his 9-year stint in Chicago, many of us remember him signing that big 4-year $72 million contract with the New York Knicks. And I'm sure we're all aware he didn't play so well in New York, as he got released in just his 2nd year of the contract. But do you guys remember that he played for the Memphis Grizzlies the following season in 2019? He only played 42 games for them and was cut again. And then a whole year later in the bubble, Noah signed with the Los Angeles Clippers, but he only played 5 games for the team. I think it's safe to say that it would have been a better sight for Noah if he never left the city of Chicago, as seeing him in a Grizzlies and Clippers uniform just didn't seem right, especially after his history in Chicago. Dwight Howard. The former number 1 pick for the Orlando Magic in 2004, Dwight Howard back in the day was one of, if not the best big man in the league, and he even got the nickname Superman. But after his 8-year stint in Orlando, Dwight got traded to LA, where he would spend one very shaky season with Kobe until he signed with the Rockets in free agency. Dwight has played for a lot of teams, as many of us know, including the Charlotte Hornets, the Atlanta Hawks, the Sixers, but do you guys remember the 9 games he played in Washington? Because I barely did. What is even crazier about this is that Dwight was on Charlotte the year before in 2018 and got traded to the Brooklyn Nets. He never suited up for them and got bought out, which led to his signing with the Washington Wizards. However though, he would only play 9 games with the team and then be ruled out for the remainder of the season with a back injury. Sticking with big men, our next player, we got Patrick Ewing. When you think of legends wearing a Knicks uniform, you think of guys like Carmelo, Walt Frazier, and Patrick Ewing definitely comes to mind. The Hall of Fame big man spent his first 15 years of his career rocking the blue and orange, but at the age of 38 and clearly past his prime, Ewing took his talents to the franchise all NBA fans miss and love, the Seattle Supersonics. And the very next season after that, he went to the Orlando Magic. He called it a career after that at the age of 39, but those are 2 franchises I don't think Ewing expected to play for, and I don't think those franchises ever expected that they would get Ewing either. Moving on to another big man from Ewing's era, Hakeem Olajuwon. As many of you know, Hakeem was the #1 pick in the 1984 NBA draft and was taken 2 picks before the GOAT, Michael Jordan. But Hakeem was so talented that the Rockets didn't even look back at their decision. Hakeem played his first 17 seasons for the Houston Rockets, picking up 2 titles in '94 against Ewing and the Knicks and '95 against Shaq and the Orlando Magic. But in 2001, Hakeem at the age of 38 signed a 1-year deal with the Toronto Raptors. He only started in 37 of the 61 games he played north of the border, but Hakeem in a Raptors jersey was a very strange sight to behold, as him rocking a purple Raptors jersey just looked so off. Moving on to another player who was on the Raptors with Hakeem, Vince Carter. At the beginning of his career, Vince was such an icon in Toronto that they literally called him Air Canada. The name of the arena, by the way. But you guys may be thinking, hasn't Vince Carter played for a lot of NBA teams? The Raptors, the Nets, the Magic, the Grizzlies, the Mavs, the Hawks at the end of his career? But do you guys remember when he played for the Phoenix Suns for half a year in 2011? Because I barely did before making this video. And he also spent 1 season with the Sacramento Kings in 2018, 2 franchises he didn't spend a lot of time with, but also 2 franchises most of us completely forgot he played for. Now moving on to Vince Carter's cousin, Tracy McGrady. T-Mac was one hell of a player, especially in the early days of his career before his injuries cut it short. Most of us know that he started his career with VC in Toronto, but got traded to Orlando in just his 4th season and became a superstar from there on out. He went to Houston after that, and then around 2009 and 10, it was looking like his injuries were getting the better of him and his career was near the end. But do you guys remember his stint with the Knicks in 2010? He only played 24 games with the club until he went to the Detroit Pistons, where he actually played 72 games for the season. But he was clearly a shell of himself, only averaging 8 points per game. And the year after that, he went to the Atlanta Hawks, which hell, I didn't even remember he played there. And last but not least, he went to the San Antonio Spurs in 2013, where he only played 6 games with the club, playoff games by the way. But that Spurs team was 1 win away on 2 separate occasions from winning the championship, getting T-Mac his 1 and only ring. As we all know, that was the year Ray Allen hit that shot from the corner, and T-Mac would retire the following season without ever winning the elusive NBA championship. But T-Mac wearing a Spurs jersey, a Knicks jersey, a Pistons jersey, a Hawks jersey were uniforms nobody ever expected to see T-Mac wear. Now moving on to one of the greatest big men to play the game, Shaquille O'Neal. Many of us know that Shaq has played for a ton of NBA teams in his long career, and we've seen that meme of Shaq wearing all colors of the rainbow at a certain time. But do any of you guys remember his time with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics? Because I think it was a time we all wish we could forget. When Shaq went to go play for the Cavs in 2009 at the age of 37, we all knew his best days were behind him and he could barely run up the court. And he was getting his shots blocked by 5'9" Nate Robinson. But he also played 1 more season with the Boston Celtics until calling it a career in 2011. Him playing with the Celtics was a very weird sight, as we all know Shaq as the Laker legend, winning 3 titles with the franchise. And the way his career ended with the Celtics, losing in the playoffs to Miami and not even getting a farewell tour, I think there were many other teams in the NBA that would have been better for him to retire with. And now our last player on this list, the Spurs legend, Tony Parker. We have seen many legends play their entire career with the San Antonio Spurs. Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, David Robinson, but what about Tony Parker? Tony Parker spent his first 17 years of his career with the Spurs and had one hell of a career with the franchise. 4 championships, a finals MVP, 6-time All-Star, and a 4-time All-NBA member. But in 2018, at the age of 36, Tony was clearly at the end of his career. And after Manu retired in 2018, many thought Parker would do the same in just a matter of time. But Tony would take his talents to the Charlotte Hornets of all places, and he recently stated that he went to Charlotte so he could play with his idol, Michael Jordan. But Parker wearing the vibrant turquoise of the Charlotte Hornets just looked off, and it was something nobody ever expected to see. And I think it's something that most of us fans will forget about sooner rather than later. And that is the end of the video. If you like this video and want to see more content just like this one, drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for new videos every week. Thank you guys, and I will see you in the next one.